Hello, everybody. It's Jamie Boglin, and we are here on another episode of Mom's Gone Fab, where we will be talking about flow and attracting abundance and being blissfully happy no matter how crazy your life is. Today, I have Erika, Nicole, Kendall with me. Hello, Erika.
Hey. So happy to be here.
She said she's on the streets of New York because it's quieter than at her house.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. Oh my gosh, you have no idea.
That cracks me up. So anyways, ladies, Erika Nicole, is a blog. She has a blog for the Black Girl's Guide to Losing Weight. That's awesome. How long have you had that?
So I started in July of 2009, and it was an idea. I was like, I need a place where I can kind of keep track of all the things that I had learned on my own weight loss journey. And it snowballed into this giant thing where the combination of media attention and just word of mouth kind of snowballed into this thing that I decided to start doing for a living. And I take it on the road, and I travel to different cities, and I talk to women, and I train them, and I help them understand how to make an active lifestyle and healthy eating a part of their everyday life.
So when you went on this journey, was your goal in the very beginning, just to lose weight and then have accountability somewhere, or just to journal it or something like that?
Honestly, it all started on accident for me because,
and
I tell this story a lot, and my mom is always like, you always do me so dirty when you tell this story. And it's like, well,
we want to hear.
my mom totally nagged me about my health and my fitness level. A gym happened to open up around the corner from our house, and she was like, you could always go to the gym, and you could take, I'll take your daughter, and all right, Mom, I'll go check it out. And I checked it out, and I decided to join, and that was essentially how it started for me. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea where it was going to go. So I was essentially scared to set goals, because it's I don't want to set goals for something when I don't even really know what I'm doing, and then get my feelings hurt because I don't achieve those goals. Because you can set all the goals in the world, but if you don't have a path to actually get there, that's how that kind of cycle of disappointment and shame and deciding to kind of just say screw it, that's where a lot of that comes from. So I was afraid to get into that cycle. So I didn't know where it was going to go. I just so happened to have the kind of support system that would direct me to the right resources that I could learn for myself and say, oh, okay, so let's just see where this goes. Let's just, instead of fixating on where I want it to go, let's just kind of do the work and see where it takes us.
Right. And what did you start at? What was your weight when you started?
I started at 330 pounds.
Okay.
And I lost, let's just say I lost a football player.
A football player? Wow.
I lost a high school football player. Let's do that. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So basically it sounds like this was more of not even just losing the weight. It was more about a mind shift that happened with you.
Yeah, it was something that I didn't grow up with active lifestyles being a part of my family life. My mother's not relatively active. My dad, although my dad's a Marine, that kind of fell by the wayside for him. That. There are some people who leave active service, active duty, and they take that kind of active lifestyle with them.
Uh-huh.
My dad did not.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a part of what I learned about taking care of myself growing up. So when it came down to it, I really had to learn what it meant to eat healthier, what that meant for me, because I'm a recovering emotional eater. So I needed to know what it meant for me to eat healthier, what it meant for me to be active. Being active for me isn't going to necessarily mean, a $220 a month CrossFit box. Mm-hmm. There are people for whom that is awesome, but for me, that wouldn't fit. So it was all about, for me, trying to figure out what it is that would make me happy, what would satisfy me, and what would be meaningful enough to me that I would continue it on so that I could maintain whatever it was that I would ultimately lose at the end.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us some examples of what an emotional eater would be? Because I think of it as only when I'm crying and the week before my period am I going to eat emotionally, right? But I know there's other examples. Can you give us some?
Well, I think of it like this. If you are someone who copes with the stress and anxiety of your everyday life through eating, and not just And it's not just the idea of, oh, I can't wait for dinner. It's, I need this specific thing because I know that this specific thing is going to provide me with this specific emotion at the end, and it's going to take me out of the feelings that I have right now. It's going to be my escape. It's going to be my release. You know, looking forward to it. It's like, that's like, when you think about it on a neurochemical level. I know I'm nerding out a little bit. Let me try not to. But when you think about it on a emotional hormone level, it's the same. It is literally the same as the way that some people think about an addiction to shopping, or an addiction to alcohol, or an addiction to any number of other behaviors that we're addicted to, because of the fact that we are looking for something outside of general problem solving and healthy coping mechanisms to help us solve or help us feel better about the stress and anxiety that we feel in our everyday life. And it's like, it's one thing to kind of just veg out with the girls and like Netflix and chill in the platonic way. But you know, it's more than just kind of, I'm going to enjoy the food that I'm eating. It's much more about the fact that you're using it as an escape from everyday life, as opposed to actually trying to address or accept the negative experiences that you have in your everyday life.
Are they only negative experiences, or could they be happy ones too? Like birthdays and things like that?
Well, I don't think it's birthdays, and I don't think that I think that it is specifically negative experiences, because we don't run from positivity. We don't run from the joy of a birthday or the celebration of like a birth or a baby shower or a wedding. We don't run from those things unless you have a social anxiety issue, in which case that's different.
Right.
But when it's something that makes you want to kind of isolate yourself, and then you isolate yourself, and then you are doing that with, like, say, a giant container of cheese puffs, which was something that I used to do.
Yeah.
That's something that that's something that would fall under emotional eating in my estimation.
Awesome. Okay. And then, so you had talked about your active lifestyle. Now, is this every day that you have to be active? How often are you active now?
I try to do a little something every day, but that doesn't mean that it's an hour and a half yoga session. You know, it doesn't mean that it's 45 minutes running. It's sometimes a 20-minute walk outside with the kids. Sometimes sometimes it is a 15-minute kind of quick cardio cycle, a HIIT cycle, or sometimes it's and sometimes, it has to be the hour and a half of yoga, because my toddler wouldn't stop screaming and hollering at the top of his lungs, and my daughter was extremely annoying, complaining about his crying. You know, like, sometimes it needs to be the hour and a half.
Totally.
Because that's what keeps everybody alive and healthy and happy and with all their limbs intact, right? So it's for me, it's something every day, because if not, because I work from home, it could just as easily wind up being me sitting on my couch all day. So for me, it has to be a little something every day, just so that I don't fall back into that cycle of being a couch potato again.
So so you work from home, you're home all the time. Do you have accountability outside to get to work out, or how do you actually get yourself from in the habit of just hanging out at home to being active, being more active than you should be, or that you being more active than you need to be, so that you like work up that heart rate and things like that?
I know what you mean. When my husband comes home from work, the first thing he does is he hugs me and he kisses me, and then he says, "Get out of here."
Yeah.
So, because he knows that my first inclination is to say, "Oh, but the kids need it."
Yes.
Or, "Oh, but I forgot to," or, "Oh, I really need to." Like, sometimes he will take his hand and put it on my laptop and close my laptop and say, "Come out of here. What are you doing? Like, take your laptop with you if it's that serious. Go, but you need to get out." You know. So I have that. And I also have dear friends who are very deliberate about checking in with me. "You at the gym yet? What do you do at the gym today? What are you doing? What are you doing at the gym later? Are you going to the gym later?" Like, I have friends who also have embraced that more active lifestyle, and we do check in on each other. "Everything okay? You doing all right?" Like, I'll text my friend and say, You doing okay? Have you been in the gym yet?" Because that's how my friend relieves stress. You know,
yes.
the MMA the thing where, you know, they beat each other up. That's how my friend relieves stress, you know. So it's like I check in, make sure, you know, have you been? Because I know your next day at work is probably going to be stressful. So I do have that kind of squad where, you know, we all work really hard to try to keep active living as a part of our everyday lives, and checking in with each other to make sure that we basically uh, formed this as a part of our self-care, and we make sure that we are taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it sounds like your group of friends kind of changed their habits too, or maybe your friends even changed to have more like-minded goals.
You know what it is. I find that I had always had very active friends, but they didn't include me in that part of their lives because they didn't want me to feel bad for not being active myself. Okay. So once I started being more active, my friends started cluing me in a little bit more on how they stay active. And yeah, you know, the more that I frequented the same spaces, like my spin studio, I made friends at my spin studio.
Right.
You know, so we see each other every Saturday at 2:00. It's like, hey, you know, she's gonna kill it today because we have the same teacher every Saturday. So it's like, you know, she's gonna kill it today. Yeah, our music is crazy. You know, like these are people that I've made friends with because we're at the same spot and have been for a year now. You know, so it was my friends cluing me in on this thing that they now felt like it wouldn't be them trying to goad me into doing something they didn't think I wanted to do. And I did make friends in the spaces that I frequent. And I also did pick up friends, just like friends from the web, friends from different networks, where we all kind of talk about just being active. What do you do? Oh, I'm a cyclist. I do, you know, 25 miles on the weekend. And I'm like, that's crazy. And they're like, I know, but it's awesome, you know. But we have that appreciation, because if I say that, oh, I walked from 23rd Street in Manhattan to the middle of Brooklyn, people are like, that's crazy. Like, I know, but it's awesome. And they're like, yeah, it is kind of awesome. You know, so it's like you appreciate these kinds of things just because it's not, oh, but you know, like my DVR is full. It's like, yeah, but I can watch that on my phone as I walk from 21st, 3rd Street, Manhattan, you know. So you do have to, I do think that you do have to have friends who support the crazy things that you do, or the things that seem crazy in comparison to the way that lots of people do live, which is much more sedentary than I am at this point.
I love that you have that culture between you and your husband, where he just says like go, and he knows that like that's the unspoken rule that mama needs to get out of the house.
Yeah, you know, it's like, because I think that he realizes that it was really difficult for me that first year after our son was born, because I essentially never left the house. Like I was always holed up in bed or on the couch. I was always nursing, or I was always reading, or I was always writing, and I was always afraid to leave, because it was like, if I leave, I'm going to miss a feeding, or if I leave, I'm going to this, or if I leave, I'm going to that. And I would fight him on it. And so now that I realized that was kind of a component, well, not kind of, but that was essentially a component of my postpartum depression. And so now he understands that me being able to relieve some of the stress and anxiety that I have, that I collect from being home all day, when he comes home, he understands, like, this is mommy's self-care time.
Right.
So mommy's going to go crazy if we don't let mommy get out of the house. So as soon as he gets home, it's the hug, it's the kiss, and it's get out. So
yeah. Awesome. So you said you practice a lot of clean eating now. What kinds of things do you follow?
So I know that everybody has their own definition of clean eating, and I respect that. I really do. I think, though, for me, it's important for me to make sure that my food, my dishes are lower, not low carb, but lower in carb than the average dish that people eat nowadays. So lower carb, higher fat, high protein for me, because I need to make sure that the food that I eat is filling, as opposed to like bread. Like if I'm not careful, I'll eat like half a loaf of bread just in one sitting, because it's like bread and peanut butter is great. You add honey and it's incredible, but I can't eat that all day. So it's that. It's also making sure that the food has lots of fiber, so that it's a little bit more gentle on my blood sugar. Making sure that the salt is low, making sure that I don't eat a lot of processed foods, because they're often very high carb, very low protein, very low fiber, very high sugar. That's another thing. I keep the sugar to an absolute minimum. Like if it's not in my morning grapefruit, I likely don't have it. So outside of that, I think for me, clean eating is essentially just a matter of, it's not, it's not chicken breast with like, I don't know what it is. What is it that people put on it? Like Pam or something like that. Like I don't do that. Like I like my spices. I use salt. I use a little, I don't use a bunch of it, but I use salt. I use spices. I use oils, but I do not eat processed food. And
you put flavor in it.
Oh yeah. I have a remarkable spice cabinet. I will say that.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
So part of being the Fab Mommy lifestyle is to incorporate flow and attract abundance and be blissfully happy no matter what. Would you say that by setting up these standards and rules into your regime throughout the day that you attained flow or abundance and bliss?
For me, honestly, dealing with my emotional eating was all about flow and abundance for me.
Okay.
It was all about me understanding that life is sometimes hard, and in all honesty, the kind of ice cream isn't going to make it any easier. And I need to be less of someone who hides from problems and more as someone who solves problems. Like a problem is not a stop, it's a hurdle, and you can always hurdle over it. And if you can't hurdle over it, if you trip over it, you can be trained to hurdle over it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's important to think about when it comes to flow, because when you're running that race, like there's the hurdle, you can flow and get past it. You can be trained to get past it if you trip over it. Like it does not have to stop. You can keep going, and you don't have to let it be something that bricks you to the point where you have to run and hide because you're embarrassed and ashamed and there's the cheese puffs. I don't have to be that person, and I don't have to think of my world in that way. So it's more than just put down the cookies. It's, well, why did you pick the cookies up in the first place? Don't let the negativity that can sometimes come from the world interrupt your flow.
Right.
And
That's
then appreciating,
awesome.
I'm sorry, but then also just appreciating what I have and realizing that even at its worst, the world, even at its absolute worst, still can't take away from me what I have. I have an incredible family. I have great friends. I have a wonderful home. I live in an incredible city. I have more than I imagined I could have ever had, thanks to this blog when I started it almost a decade ago. And it's like abundance is one of those things where you don't have to go hunting for it. You will find it. You will see it there. You just have to be able to recognize and appreciate it. And sometimes that negativity can block that.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with that makes a world of difference. And then you just see how abundant your life really is before you know it.
That's awesome. So it sounds like it wasn't actually that you had like all these problems before. It's just you didn't know how to deal with little things.
Right.
And so now if big things come in your life, you're like, come on, I got this.
Yeah. It's like
you hurdle over it.
Exactly. You look at it and you're like, yeah, this is, and even with stuff that just sucks. Like my husband was in the hospital for like the bulk of the summer last year. And it's like, this sucks.
Yeah.
But there's always tomorrow. And if I can fight for tomorrow, then I will be okay. And that was, and for me to learn that and realize that and make that a personal like mantra and meditation, for me, that was an incredible experience, because today is bad. Today is really, really bad. But I will wake up and tomorrow is a new opportunity. And even if tomorrow is bad too, like this will be over soon. I just have to keep fighting. And the idea of continuing to fight and continuing to kind of just work towards being able to get through it without what I consider to be self-harm, which would be binge eating again. Like that's an experience that is meaningful to me. Like that's a mantra that's meaningful to me.
Yeah. Awesome. And how old are your kids? I didn't even ask you.
They're too old and not old enough. My oldest is 11 and my youngest turns 2 in a couple of weeks.
Okay, that's exactly what I have right now. And then I have a 9-year-old in the middle there.
Oh, lucky you. Lucky you. Oh, no. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on this interview today. And you have a free gift for our listeners. Can you want to tell us about it?
Yes, yes. So what I have to offer is one of the clean eating meal plans that I offer on my website, completely and totally free. And the reason I offer these, and I've always told people, these will always be available on my website because people don't really think about what it means to eat clean, or at least by my definition, and why it's such a life changing experience. Because I think that we don't realize exactly how much we rely on food that is often really full of sugar, and ultimately we find ourselves kind of dependent on it. Like
Mm-hmm.
we look forward to the next meal, or we get the next craving for to eat, not because we're actually hungry, but because we want the sugar. And when
Mm-hmm.
you remove the sugar, it's all about the flavor. You can't just have a flavorless meal and there's no sugar.
Right.
Now you have to actually think about food that is flavorful, and then it's actually satisfying as opposed to just kind of giving you the sugar fix. So when I offer these meal plans, they're simple. Um, they are simple little recipes that provide a large amount of yield. So there's a few servings left over, so you have it for lunch the next day. And so it's 7 days literally of you just eating clean, healthy recipes. And because I have a weight loss blog, you may lose a little bit of weight too.
Mm-hmm.
But it has that benefit of kind of separating you from the things that I personally believe a lot of people are dependent on, which is very sugar laden processed foods.
I agree. I agree. So awesome. Thank you so much. And where can we find you at?
You can find me everywhere. Okay, so on
Where?
Twitter you can find me at BGG2WL. Same for Instagram. And on Facebook you can search me for A Black Girl's Guide to Weight Loss, and it's the verified badge, because I know that there are some fakes out there. So my blog is verified on Facebook. So if you search A Black Girl's Guide to Weight Loss on Facebook, find me there.
That's how I found you. So
Yes.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.